Hi guys, it's Matt here from MCS Books, and today I want to do my first small booktuber Sunday shoutouts video. So I have seen a lot of people do these videos, and I think it's so great that everyone within the small booktube creator community are so supportive. And I found that at the time when the demonetization was happening, it was a very important thing for people to share these creators and to show how much they do value what they create, which is such a heartfelt thing to do, and it can really brighten someone's day and can prove to the creators how much we do appreciate and value the work that they put into a craft, which is ultimately a hobby. It does really provide a sort of empowerment to promote the great work that is being done here on BookTube, especially by the smaller creators. And I don't particularly want to politicize this video or the reasons behind my making of this video. My biggest motivation is that recently I have just been so overwhelmed by the kindness of other creators and content creators here on BookTube. People regularly leave comments on all my videos, and it's because of them that I continue making these videos, because it's so lovely to engage with such new people from all around the world of such different backgrounds. So an important thing for me on my channel has always been about making education accessible and sort of making ideas accessible and safe, and creating this space where not only can I share my thoughts, but to be challenged by you guys, because that's what it's about, and I feel I do get a lot of that. And whilst a lot of people agree with me, sometimes people reflect differently or interpret things differently, which is so exciting and is something that I just really want to encapsulate within my channel. And I think the biggest thing that makes it so wonderful is this engagement from other people and the support from other people. So today I have chosen 5 of my favourite small booktubers, and I want to talk to you, and I want to talk to them personally, and to thank them for being so wonderful and for enthusing about the stuff that I create. But I also want to bring them to other people's awareness so that other people can discover interesting creators and perhaps discover a new favourite booktuber. So I'm not simply going to just list their names. I wanted to do something to show how much I appreciate their friendship here on BookTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce their channel to say what I enjoy, and then I'm going to suggest a book that I think they would enjoy. So for everyone else who's watching, if you find the book that I mention interesting, you will most certainly find the booktuber that I have paired the book with also interesting, and I will link all of their channels below. So let's start with a lovely lady called Sharon from Hooked on Books. I want to start with her because actually I thought that she was perhaps one of the most difficult to choose a book for. I believe that she and I have very similar tastes, but what I love most about her channel is just her presence in front of the camera. And she does this really interesting roulette series where she chooses a book from her shelves using a roulette wheel. But then when she talks about the books that she has been reading or the books that she wants to read, she does it in such a way that is hilarious, yet engaging and positive and just brilliant all around. Recently she made a video, the start of a series in which she showcases her Alice in Wonderland collection, and the editing that she put into it was just, I felt so in awe of it, because I can understand and I appreciate how dedicated she must have been to that video and how much work she put into it. So like I said, I thought that choosing a book for her would be difficult because she works in a bookshop, and therefore she has quite a lot of access and knowledge about books. The first book that I thought straight away I wanted to suggest was The Little Buddhist Monk by César Aira. And then of course I didn't want to suggest a book that she had already read, so I looked on her Goodreads and found, yes, she had already read this book, and she had given it 4 stars, just like I had given it 4 stars. I originally thought to suggest this book to her because she also enjoyed A General Theory of Oblivion, which was one of my favourite books last year that I read. And whilst these 2 books are very different from each other, there was something which kind of I felt similar, not only because like the covers have the same colour palette almost, but I think just the general sense of the pieces and the general whimsy of both of them was something that really made me find the parallels and made me think that Shazza would really enjoy them. However, like I said, she had read this book, so I thought, well, what other one can I suggest? So I thought I would suggest Peter and Alice by John Logan. This is a play, and it hadn't been on her Goodreads, so I'm pretty sure she hasn't read it yet. But if you have, Sharon, let me know and I'll try to think of one that you haven't yet read. But I chose this play because, of course, it is based around Alice Liddell, the woman who inspired the story Alice in Wonderland. And of course you can already see what the link is, considering that Shazza made the Alice in Wonderland video recently to showcase her collection. So obviously there is that interest there. I absolutely loved this play, and it had very surreal vibes, which I think Shazza would be highly interested in. So they are my book suggestions for Hooked on Books. The next booktuber that I want to choose is the ever lovely Miriam at BetweenLinesandLife. Miriam has been supported from my channel from almost the word go, and her support is unending. I want you to know, Miriam, that my support for you is unending. No matter what you choose to do with your channel, I will be here rooting for you and loving everything that you put out. Now, Miriam is one of the most friendliest girls I've ever had the chance to meet, and she just knows how to brighten your day. She has always complimented me far more than I ever deserve. However, I do appreciate it, and I think that many people can find so much worth from the content that she creates. So for you, Miriam, the book I would like to suggest is The Salmon Who Dared to Leap Higher by Arnd. Do-Hyun. I'm not 100% sure on the pronunciation, but I think that's as good as I can get. Now, I suggested this book because for me it was very reminiscent of Coelho's books. This book I think Miriam would enjoy because it deals with existential thought, but it's told through such a simple and yet beautiful way. There are illustrations in this book too, which I think Miriam would definitely enjoy. But most of all, it is just the themes, the topics, and the feeling that I got from this book that I think Miriam would appreciate from a book. I also want to suggest another book. Now, I haven't actually read this book, but however, I feel it is perfect and I must tell Miriam about this book. It is called Anthropology and Art Practice, edited by Arnd Schneider and Christopher Wright. Now, I think the name pretty much suggests it all, Anthropology and Art Practice. Now, I suggest this book because recently Miriam has been talking about her studies, and she had been studying philosophy, but she had talked about how she has changed it because she's sort of thinking and reconsidering the sort of pathway that she wants to go academically. She has showed an interest in my studies of cultural analysis, and I just really want to support her in that, and I want to show her how cultural analysis and anthropology can be used with an art history perspective and yet still have the philosophy that I know she truly enjoys. Now, I've chosen this collection in particular because one of the chapters within it is written by a man called Robert Willem. Now, Robert is one of my lecturers, and he's probably one of my favourite lecturers at university. So he is based here in Lund, and whilst he's an academic, he is also a practicing artist. He's very much interested in the sort of surreal and the experimentation of art and ethnography. And he uses film and visual media to sort of evoke imaginary worlds. So I want to introduce him to Miriam, but also introduce this whole topic to Miriam. So I hope if you get to either of these two books, you will enjoy them. So they are my suggestions for Between Lines and Life. Now, the next booktuber I wanted to talk about is Leah from Hyde and Seek. Leah is a fabulous Australian woman who produces the most concise yet descriptive and educative reviews of videos. The way that Leah speaks is just incredible and requires so little editing that I am always envious of everything she produces. Yet I am so happy to be a part of what she produces, in that I can engage and I know that she can respond with wonderful and interesting and witty comments. So for Leah, because Leah is so staunch in advocating Australian literature, which is where she is from, I wanted to share my homeland with Leah. So the first book that I chose was The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I noticed that, Leah, you have already read this book. Now I saw that you gave it 3 stars, which I think is a very fair rating, and I just wanted to express to you why I thought this book would be good for you. So I chose this book first and originally because I wanted to share my home country with you, and I believe that Ishiguro really can encapsulate the sort of British mentality. I also studied my undergrad, well, a little bit of my undergrad with his daughter, but she dropped out because it wasn't the course for her. And this book in particular just reminds me of my home county, Devon. It is full of rolling hills, it is full of mists because of the sea, and it is just full of this quiet, peaceful way of life and living that really was just encaptured within this book. And I just feel that the way that the 2 main characters love each other is very indicative of this part of the country for me, because it just reminds me of the way that my grandparents loved each other. However, Leah, you have read this book, so I wanted to find another one that perhaps you hadn't read. So Leah on her channel always talks about the books that she loved as a child and were very evocative of Australia and her childhood. So I thought, actually, I will choose a book that I loved as a child. And that book is Tarka the Otter by Henry Williamson. Now this book, of course, I haven't read this book in years, but this book as a child just filled me with such imagination and love for British nature. The otters of this story are living in rivers from North Devon, which is an hour or so up from where I actually live in Devon. However, right near where I live is the River Otter, which of course is very evocative of otters in England. Like, the River Otter is where the otters are supposed to be. So this book just really encaptures my part of the UK and my childhood. And I want to share those memories with you, Leah, and the memories of my homeland in the way that you really provide such great insights into Australian literature. So they are my suggestions for Hyde and Seek. Now the next booktuber I want to find is one that I really loved engaging with in February for February. Her name is Miriam, and she is at the channel The Bookish Land. Now Miriam makes really great content, particularly about Chinese literature. Again, in the way that Leah supports the literature from her home country, Miriam does the same. And what I love most about Miriam is that she is so open-minded and so willing to learn, which I feel is such an important thing for anyone just living. She always provides such wonderful reviews of her books, and the way that she expresses these reviews just makes me feel so comforted and so at home and at ease. But she does also provide really interesting thoughts into literature from other places or literature from other times, and how she interprets and understands these texts. She is particularly interested in learning more about feminism, which I am all here for. However, the book that I want to suggest to Miriam is Ghostwritten by David Mitchell. Now, David Mitchell is one of my all-time favourite British authors. However, he did live in Japan for a long time, and he talks about the East Asian experience from a Western perspective quite a lot in his books. And in Ghostwritten, not only do we have parts that are set in Japan, but we also have parts set in China and Hong Kong. Or the part of the book that was set in Hong Kong, from my experience of also living in Hong Kong, was just so real to life. It was just fascinating to read it and to vividly see the person who was described within this part. Within this book, Mitchell also makes allusions to John Chang, I think the name is, the Chinese-born British writer. And I feel like these allusions to Chinese literature, the thought that goes into Mitchell's work when talking and discussing not only Japanese but also Chinese perspectives, is so well researched that I think Miriam would enjoy that. But also, I just wanted to share my favourite British author. And since Miriam is so interested in learning more about feminism, I wanted to actually suggest to you a sort of feminist text and a feminist figure who I really enjoy reading from. So the book I want to suggest is Against Interpretation and Other Essays by Susan Sontag. Susan Sontag has a way of writing which is just so beautiful and evocative and she can write these literary examinations which are academic and accessible at the same time. Now, I haven't actually read this collection in particular. I think I've read one of the essays from there, but I have read her book regarding the pain of others, which is just wonderful. However, I thought this collection, since it's probably one of Susan Sontag's most well-known collections of essays, it's just so lauded by so many people, I really think it's one that Moonicorn, I think you would enjoy it. So they are my suggestions for the Bookish land. And now my final booktuber that I want to talk about. I feel that perhaps she's not the most smallest of booktubers. She has a very healthy amount of subscribers. However, Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction is, in my opinion, one of the most kindest and warm-hearted people on BookTube who really supported smaller booktubers during the demonetization period. I think the content that she creates is both interesting and aesthetically pleasing. I love the way that she just really participates in the bookish community, even if she's not making videos every other day. She is always active on Twitter and on Goodreads, and I just love that presence from Ashley. So I had to put her here in this video just for that solid support that she gives not only to myself, but to so many other smaller booktubers. So for you, Ashley, the first book I want to suggest is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I did check your Goodreads and I couldn't see it on there, but do let me know if you haven't already read it. I suggested this one to you because you like fantasy, and I feel that this one is a very interesting fantasy. The Magicians is a sort of cross between Harry Potter and the Chronicles of Narnia, but grown up. It deals with lots of very interesting topics. It comes from like the idea of what do we want out of fantasy, but what would magic mean if it was actually real? The characters in this book are just so well-rounded and so human that really grounds this book and makes it feel like perhaps it isn't just a fantasy. The main character is quite difficult to get along with, but the more that you go on through this book, you kind of learn to understand why. And actually, I just feel that you would enjoy this piece and you would get a lot from it, especially with your literature degree, which perhaps could give you a sort of different reading of it. And I feel that it's kind of that in-between stage where it's not quite YA and it's not quite adult, and I just feel that it could be one that you would really enjoy. I also wanted to suggest one more book to you, actually, and that is this one, Literature and Evil by Georges Bataille. Now, I haven't actually read this book yet, but I am so eager to get to it. Georges Bataille was part of the Surrealist movement, but he grew jaded by it and kind of left. And in this text, he looks at some of literature's most famous writers and talks about evil and base desires in their work, and how he believes that by understanding the root of evil within literature, you can sort of learn more about being human and the real world and the way that literature should be interpreted or should be written. Now, like I said, I haven't actually read this book yet, but actually if it is one that you are interested in, then definitely let me know and I'll put it off so we can buddy read it sometime. Because I do think that not only would this be interesting, but it could give you some ideas into some of the work that you might do for your degree. So they are my recommendations for A Frolic Through Fiction. Now that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found some great new booktubers that you might enjoy. I'm sorry that I haven't done everyone that I would love to do, but I am thinking I will definitely make more of these kind of videos. So again, not only do I want to thank these lovely booktubers for being so kind and being so generous and being just so generally lovely and showing me great friendship, but I do also want to thank you guys for sticking around, watching and enjoying and engaging with my content. And please know that it is not lost on me, and I do appreciate it, and I will definitely be putting thought into more books for more booktubers at a later date. So if you liked this video, you can always give it a thumbs up, and you can always subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. And I'll see you next time for another video. Bye bye.